So, aside from my Arkham Knight video, I have not posted a video in a couple weeks. So I thought, as some more filler content, I would make a video about my gaming hot takes until I finish my actual, legitimate video on The Last of Us. And by the way, just remember The Last of Us, because that will be coming back later in this video. So keep that in mind. So without anything else to say, let's get into it with my first hot take being pretty spicy, which is Batman Arkham City probably has one of the weakest stories in all the games. And that says a lot, seeing how I personally think there's only two good, like legitimately good stories in the Arkham franchise, which are Arkham Origins and Arkham Shadows, which I have played personally, like firsthand. And I've got to say, not only does it have a really good story, as my first ever VR game, it is amazing. Like, it just feels so good. And I also got the OG Resident Evil 4 on the Medicals as well, and that also feels so good to play. But back to Arkham City, I like the story, but at the same time, it's not a good story, if that makes any sense. It just doesn't really grip me. It doesn't really grab my attention like, Origins and Shadow does. I don't get like the same feeling that I do from like other, good stories from video games or movies or TV shows or etc., etc. The story does have good moments, like good scenes, good dialogue, like that one line where where Batman said he would have let Joker live.
Are you happy now?
Do you want to know something funny? Even after everything you've done, I would have saved you.
That actually is pretty funny.
That line is still, ingrained in my head till this day. Especially since, I replayed the game a few weeks back because, I was already thinking about how I don't really like the story that much. And the Joker reveal is still like really good, even though I of course knew about it because I've played through Arkham City like numerous of times. Because the first time I ever played it, the disc got scratched before I could finish the story. And then, I got the Wii U version, which is, if I went back to the Wii U version of Arkham City, I would probably just explode from the nostalgia I would get, because that's like the version of the game I have the most memories of. And it's also significant because I played that version around the same time I broke my femur bone. That's right, my femur bone. I broke my femur bone, which is like one of the hardest bones in your fucking body. And I was like 8 around that time. And then I played the horrible Return to Arkham. Okay, not horrible, but like pretty shitty Return to Arkham remaster of City. And then I played on the PC, which smooth buttery FPS, you know what I'm saying? But on this recent playthrough, I've come to the thought that Arkham City does not have a very strong story. They put so much impetus on Protocol 10 being such a big deal, and to me it just kind of just doesn't have that impact like it was building up to be. And the review of Ra's al Ghul being the mastermind behind all of it was kind of lame, if you ask me, especially since he wasn't that much of a prominent character in City. We didn't see him a lot or practically at all. We had like one scene, we had one part with Ra's, and that's it. Like, there was really no build up, no foreshadowing of Ra's being the big mastermind behind Arkham City, and then suddenly he just he's just the big mastermind, when we've had no evidence, no foreshadowing, nothing from Ra's being built up as the big mastermind behind everything. And don't even get me started on the whole fucking Titan Joker cure goose chase. A lot of the times it just felt like I was retreading the same ground over and over whenever we had to do something about it. It just got tiring and repetitive sometimes. again, the reveal of Clayface being Joker was like legitimately really good. I didn't expect Clayface to be in the game at all when I first finished it on the Wii U, and I've got to say the reveal was actually really good. But like, certain characters in the game, like again, Roz was like just lame. Hugo could have his moments, but also pretty lame. And Talia was just such a nothing burger, and I think we can all agree with that. Talia is such a nothing of a character in Arkham City, which is crazy because she has like really big roles in the comics. And I know I've always said that comic accuracy just does not matter that much, but this isn't even about comic accuracy. It's just making a good character. And Talia was not a good character in Arkham City because she was just so lame. She did practically nothing except for literally just being a damsel in distress in the final moment of the game. Like, yes, I know she purposely got herself captured, but at the same time, that just made her even more lame. But that's not to say that I don't love Arkham City. I love Arkham City. It's definitely one of the best Arkham games, but does it have a good story? To me, not really. It's definitely one of the weakest ones. But it's not weaker than like, Asylum, Blackgate. Definitely not weaker than Blackgate, and definitely not weaker than Night. Even on my first ever playthrough of Night, I didn't really enjoy the story that much. And I don't really think that's a hot take at all. Now, on to my next hot take, which is still about the Arkham franchise. And that's Arkham Origins is actually my favorite Arkham game in the whole entire series. I don't really know if that's a hot take anymore because Arkham Origins has gone a pretty big resurgence from these couple past years. Like when it first came out, it was crowned as the worst Arkham game. It was just so bad. But now people like genuinely like the game, and I'm so happy to know that because like I always liked Arkham Origins, and I love it even more. Like now that I'm older and I'm able to like understand certain like subject matters, the story means so much to me now. And just genuinely playing Arkham Origins just feels so good, specifically playing as this version of Batman, this like younger version of Batman, and is like I think second or third year of being Batman. It just feels so good to play as this like more violent and brutal Batman. And I've got to say they really show that off in like the animations. Like a lot of the animations from the previous games are still in Origins, but they kind of touched them up a little bit, like changed them a little bit to show how more aggressive this Batman is. Like this one counter in Arkham City where he grabs a thug by their head with like one hand and just like pulls their head towards his knee. But in Origins, it's like, here, hang on. He grabs the thug with both of his hands and just goes boom. Like it just feels so like brutal. And that's honestly like probably one of my favorite counterattacks in the game because it just looks it looks like it hurts so bad, and I love it. I sound fucking insane, but it's true. That counter animation is just so good. But of course, it's not just the gameplay in this game, which again is amazing, but the overall story in Origins is just probably one of the best stories in gaming. Like the character writing for Batman and like Joker, Alfred especially, is just done so well in this game. And some of the most iconic cutscenes in the Arkham series comes from Origins, like the intro in this game, Alfred almost dying after Bane attacks the Batcave. Like God, like even though we know that Alfred lives past Origins, that's such a touching scene because it shows how much, even though Batman's really hard on Alfred in this game and he's genuinely such an asshole in this game, when Alfred he dies, he actually does die in Origins, but Batman's able to bring him back with the shock gloves. But when he does die and Batman just goes it's like it always brings a tear to my eye.
Alfred, can you hear me? I'm going to get you out of there. Alfred! Alfred!
Alfred, you can't.
Don't add me to the weight you carry.
even though we know that this being a prequel, we know that Alfred lives past this game. But again, it's such a touching scene. And of course, the scene where, where Batman and Alfred are both young at each other, that's also a really good scene. Just because from the performances from both of the actors.
Master Bruce, stop! Master Bruce! Bruce, I will not in good conscience allow you to go. You're outmatched by these assassins. What? You're not some hardened vigilante. You're a young man with a trust fund and too much anger. You're in over your head, and I don't want this to be your end.
Alfred, who do you see when you look at me? The boy whose shoes you used to tie every morning? The teenager you drove to his first date? While you are here every night, I am out there. The only thing between the innocent and the predator.
Be.
No, not may be. I am. When the mugger or the thief stops to think twice, that is fear. That is what I am. That is why they hired assassins, because I am the reason the criminals breathe easier when the sun rises. So no, Alfred, I am not in over my head. Tonight will not be my end, but it will be theirs.
And I've got to say, whatever role Roger Craig Smith is in, he gets into that character. He gets into Batman. He gets into Chris Redfield. He gets into fucking Sonic. And even though, I just said I love, the scene where Batman and Alfred are yelling at each other, I love imagining, Sonic replacing Batman in that scene. Because even though, it's hard to imagine, that same voice coming from Sonic. It's still funny to imagine that because it's literally the same voice actor. But still, this game is just genuinely so good. The story is just so good. And I can't forget to mention the soundtrack. It's so amazing. The track that plays in the intro of the game, it's just so thrilling. It gets me pumped up every time I play this game start to finish. And there's a lot of tracks in the game that kind of have a Christmas jingle to it, when after Joker is revealed to be Black Mask the whole time when he's escaping, the track that plays in that scene, oh my god, it's so good. It's just so good. Anyways, that's enough glazing the best Arkham game. Hey, different day Patcheheads here. Somehow I forgot to record me actually saying what my next hot take is on, the day I was actually recording this video. So in that case, I'm gonna say it right now. I don't like The Last of Us Part 2. Yep, what a surprise. Another person who does not like The Last of Us Part 2. And no, it's not because Ellie and Dina, they're a couple. It's not because of that. It's not because I hate that Abby is this big buff woman, even though I don't like Abby. It's not because she's a big buff woman. It's because of how generally the story just sucks. And that's what The Last of Us is all about. It's about story. The gameplay can be fun, but The Last of Us is mostly story. And when they failed at making a story, they failed at making a good game. Now, like I said, I do like the gameplay in The Last of Us Part 2. And I do like playing the No Return game mode that was added in the remaster. But I just don't like the story at all. I just think the overall story and, the pacing is just not done well at all. And of course, the way they kill off Joel is not only really dumb, it's also such a big betrayal of his character. And I've heard every excuse that everyone has found in the dumpster. Oh, but he's gotten soft from years of living in Jackson, being a father figure to Ellie. But how does that make sense in any way, seeing how he is one of the people that mostly, go outside of Jackson? He practically goes out of Jackson all the time. He goes out with Ellie, he goes out with Dina, he goes out with his brother Tommy, he goes out with with Jesse. He goes outside of Jackson almost all the time as one of the scouts. So why would he get soft from that, especially from being a father figure to Ellie? Wouldn't him being a father figure to Ellie make him even more have his survival instincts be even more instinctual, if you know what I mean? Like when that elevate his instincts to a higher level, he still tells Ellie to put on a gas mask when there's spores around, when she's immune and she can breathe in spores. But when Ellie says, do I have to? He's like, yes, you have to. What if we run into someone? And plus there's like no evidence, no proof, no foreshadowing that Joel is getting soft. There's no moment where like, Joel makes a mistake and he's like, or like someone is like, Joel, you're getting real, like Ellie, Tommy, Jesse, no one says, Joel, you're getting real soft. You okay? There's never a moment like that. And any of the flashbacks, no foreshadowing to that, no proof, no evidence that Joel is getting soft. Like, sure, he's soft on Ellie when he's out scouting with her on his birthday, but that's Ellie. That's his surrogate daughter. Of course, he's going to be soft on her. But again, like in one of the flashbacks where he tells Ellie to put on a mask, he's going to be hard on her. He's gonna use her survival instincts to protect her. And to even protect himself to an extent. Because no matter what you say, Joel is still the same character from the first game, even if he, has found a new daughter. He's still the same selfish asshole that he was in the first game. That's why we loved him. Because him being selfish in The Last of Us was sort of relatable. And it was like to a point where like, yes, he was selfish, but he wasn't like, he wasn't like, an evil kind of way. Like he still cared about people, but like his people. Like he specifically cared about his people and only his people. Whenever there was people in trouble that he didn't know, he left them to die. Hell, he killed innocent people. Like that's pretty much confirmed in the first game that he has killed both bad and good people. Or not good people, but like innocent people. But in the second game, it's like Naughty Dog, or more specifically Neil Druckmann, forgot who Joel was, forgot his character, forgot that he had survival instincts. He saves Abby. He doesn't even berate Tommy about about him telling Abby both their names. Like it would have made more sense if Tommy was the one that saved Abby, because I know a lot of people say that's out of character that Tommy would say his name or be chillaxed with random people, but those people are forgetting that Tommy actually is way different from Joel, especially in the first game, where he has nightmares and he hates what he did while being with Joel and also while being with the Fireflies. And so he's more open with people, and that's why Jackson is so big, because he brings in so much people. So it makes sense why Tommy would, be open and be okay with, sharing names, because he's that kind of person. He's not Joel, even though he's his brother. He's like way different from Joel. So it would have actually made sense if Tommy was the one that saved Abby, and then Joel would berate him about like, why did you save her? Why are you telling her name? Why are you telling this random person that could be dangerous to us? It would have made more sense for both the characters if their roles in that part of the game were just switched, and it would have meant something way more, because like it would be Tommy's fault that Joel died, and it would have left such an impact on on Tommy and just the game in general. But no, they had to just ruin. But Neil Druckmann just had to ruin Joel's character and part 2 just for the story to progress. And I just hated that. Like I've grown to understand why Joel died so fast like he did in The Last of Us Part 2. It was to kick off the story. But did he really have to be killed off in such a dumb way, and in a way that just completely betrays his character? But aside from Joel's death, there is so many other things wrong with this game, like Abby's portion. And like I said again, I don't hate Abby because she's this big buff woman. I could care less about that. It's just her side of the story, her character in general, the pacing of her side of the game is just not done well. The only good parts of Abby's portion is Lev and Yara. I actually do like those characters. I think Lev and Yara actually make Abby's story at least a little bearable, but other than that, I just don't like Abby and her side of the story. Especially since they try so hard for you to like, the characters on her side of the story. Look at the cute little dog that you killed before being in Abby's shoes. Like, oh, isn't the dog so cute? I don't care. I'm sorry, but I don't care. I don't care about this dog because we already killed it. If we saw this dog, if we interacted with this dog before we killed it, I would have actually cared. But in the game we got, it just comes too late and to a point where it just doesn't matter. And they try to make you care so hard about, about Abby's friends. They try to make you care so much about Mel, Manny, Owen, that dude that got, that got cut from Ellie's knife. But they've already ruined those chances because they had Manny freaking spit on Joel's corpse, which to me is even worse than what Abby did. And I'm not gonna lie, when Manny was killed by Tommy, I'm not lying, I laughed. I thought it was so funny the way he died. It was so anticlimactic. It was just hilarious. The way he just gets shot just like so suddenly, it like made me jump, but at the same time I was like, oh shit. Like, it was, I know that sounds, freaking sick, but at the same time, like, it was kind of funny. And I also don't care that Abby's father is the doctor we killed in the first game, because again, it comes way too late in the story for me to give a damn. Like, if they actually had good pacing in this game, unlike the pacing it has right now, it would have, I would have given it like at least like a 7.8 out of 10. I would have actually been able to enjoy it. And if they actually, made Joel's death, made sense and actually made it a good death, I would have probably liked the game. But with the game we got, with the story we got, I just don't like playing The Last of Us Part 2 aside from playing the No Return game, because I like how raw and like the overall feeling of the gameplay. And so I'm happy No Return, I'm happy the No Return game mode exists for me to, to be able to enjoy that gameplay without going through such a bore of a story. Okay, that was a long ass tangent, and I'm now starting to think that the video I'm making on The Last of Us is meaningless now. With that being said, let me get into my next hot take, and that's, I prefer the Resident Evil 4 remake rather than the original. Now, don't get me wrong, I love retro games, and I love the OG Resident Evil 4. I think it's really good for the kind of game it is. It's a cheesy action horror, and I think it's good in, at least two of those aspects. Me personally, I don't really, enjoy cheesiness in media that much. The horror movies like, Friday the 13th, Halloween, those kind of things, I can enjoy. And don't let this get screwed as like, me not liking, old retro games or games with tank controls. Like, I actually do like tank controls when they're done right, like in the OG Resident Evil 4 and in the Resident Evil 1 remake. But then there's games like Silent Hill 2 where I just, well, I'm gonna save that for later. But like, so far, those are the only games I've, experienced tank controls. And I've got to say, both OG RE4 and Resident Evil 1 Remake do them really well. But like, to me, I couldn't get into the story of Resident Evil 4. And also, even though I do like tank controls, I prefer more modern, objectively better controls. I'm sorry, but like, controls we have nowadays, more mod controls are objectively better. That's just a fact. And with that being said, I'm able to enjoy Resident Evil 4 way more than I do when playing the new one, the remake, because the gameplay in the remake just feels so raw. I just love it. Like, to me, I just feel like Leon is like a young John Wick in this game. Like, the animations are like even way more smoother than they were like how Resident Evil 4 OG's animations were. And I love the new knife system, and the gameplay, like the new gameplay in general, just feels so good. And I love the way the guns feel. I love the merchant. I even love Ashley in this game, which is crazy, because like, how is it even, it was like, before Resident Evil 4 remake came out, it was impossible to like Ashley, but now that it came out, it's like, Ashley is actually a good character now, and Leon actually feels like the same Leon from Resident Evil 2. And that's one of the main reasons why I like the remake way more than the original, because Leon is actually a good character in the remake. I mean, I still do like Leon in the original because of like, his one-liners. I thought he was funny. He was a funny protagonist. But if you were to tell me that that's the same Leon from RE2, I give you this. Because like, no. And I hear some people saying like it's like his jokes and whatnot. It's like a coping mechanism. You know, he's coping. You know, all of his jokes and one-liners. It's his way of like grieving and stuff about what happened in Raccoon City. But to me, it's like Raccoon City doesn't even like the events of RE4 don't get mentioned enough for me to actually believe that fact. It's like the same thing with like people saying Joel got soft in The Last of Us Part 2. What evidence do you have that, Leon uses that as a coping mechanism where he's just grieving about what happened in Raccoon City? But in the remake, in Resident Evil 4 remake, Raccoon City is actually, brought up a lot. Raccoon City and what happened in Resident Evil 2 is actually still part of Leon's character in the remake. And Nick Apostolides, who is Leon's actor in both RE2 remake and RE4 remake, solidifies that even more, because he has more of a like monotone, like low, his demeanor is like noticeably different in RE4 remake. And the voice that Nick gives Leon in this version actually makes me think that he is still going through trauma of what happened in Raccoon City. And that's even more solidified when you consider that one cutscene in the game where he's telling Ashley that like, hey, bad things happen, like, but you got to move forward, you got to keep fighting and stuff. It's like he's learning that there's still a reason to keep going, like he still has a purpose, and there's still a reason to move forward. And that's what he tells Ashley. Like, even though that he knows that she's scared, it's like he's also learning that they need to move on, and they just have to fight their way through it. And I just think Leon's character overall just makes this version of the game way better than RE4 original. And just the overall character writing and story in this game is just done so well. It's just become one of my favorite stories in gaming. Like, Krauser's character is like Krauser is so much better in the remake. Like, it actually feels like Leon and Krauser have a connection in this game, where in the original, Krauser just felt like another boss fight, and that was it. He wasn't really a meaningful character. He was just another person to fight. In the remake, you can tell that they kind of have this rivalry, brotherly bond, where like they both care about each other, but like they're rivals, like they're against each other. And like the scene where where Leon has to kill Krauser is just it's probably one of the best cutscenes in this game. Like the way like his face reflects in Krauser's knife, that's just such a good moment. And again, it just shows how much of a relationship Krauser and Leon had before this game. But there are some things I don't like about the remake, like the villains. The villains are I like the original versions of Salazar and Sadler way more than in the remake. I personally wanted Sadler and Salazar to both keep their cheesiness, because I thought they were just so funny. But like at the same time, Sadler was like actually a threatening villain, and like Sadler actually had like a significance in the original. But in the remake, he only shows up in visions that Leon gets after he's infected by Los Illuminados. And by the time he's Leon and him actually interact like in person, it's like, oh shit, this guy, I forgot that he was even supposed to be in this game, because like he barely shows up in the remake. And again, Salazar, he doesn't have his funny moments, and being a short evil king, why didn't he have like his funny moments, like moments of shouting at Leon and stuff? And I really wish they recreated that scene where like Leon and Ashley run into Salazar in that room, like the roof is collapsing, and he runs out like a little pansy, going like laughing. Like I love that scene, and I wish they recreated that. But back to like good characters, Luis was done so well in this game. Like, I love Luis in the remake. And just like Krauser, I actually feel like he has a significance in the story. And it actually also feels like his death mattered in the game, unlike in the original where they just gloss over it. Like, in the original, Luis was like literally trying to save both Leon and Ashley's lives. Like, Leon doesn't even bring it up. And even when you bring Ashley to Luis's dead body, she says nothing. And it's like Luis mattered didn't matter at all in the original. But in the remake, not only does his death have a significance in the story, but his character is just way better in general. And it's even more solidified when they give us more screen time with Luis that I was begging Capcom to do. Because even though I've kind of been trashing OG Luis a little bit, I did like his character, but not enough for me to actually love it, and, have for him to actually have a significance in the story. And I've got to say, Capcom did his character so well in the remake, and God, he's like probably the best part of the game because of how much his character got better from the original. But Ada is she's decent enough, but of course, the elephant in the room, the acting was not it. It was not it. Yeah, I'm still on this. Ada's voice acting was not good in the remake, and honestly, I don't blame the voice actress because it was kind of Capcom's fault. She had no voice roles before RE4. Her only time being even in a Resident Evil project was in the most recent Resident Evil movie, which was Welcome to Raccoon City, where she also, Jesus Christ, I need to slow the fuck down. Her only time being in, a Resident Evil 4, what? Her only time being in a Resident Evil 4, what? I'm recording this at what time? I'm recording this at 11 p.m. I'm kind of losing it right now. The only time Ada's voice actor has been in something that's Resident Evil was the most recent movie, which was Welcome to Raccoon City, where she also played Ada. And I haven't watched that movie yet because I've heard that it sucks massive dong along. And seeing how I didn't like the first live action Resident Evil movie, I don't think I would enjoy the most recent one. But yeah, they should have casted someone else to be Ada's voice actor because she was so dry in Resident Evil 4. And people have the excuses well, it's because Ada she's supposed to have this non-caring tone, that's her personality. No, it's not. She gives a damn in the story. She cares about shit in the story. Don't try to make bullshit excuses like that. Especially in the scene where she's where she's at that computer and she's and Wesker is showing that the island's gonna explode with Leon and Ashley on it. She actually does care. That's showed in her body language, and even sometimes her voice actor can show that Ada does care. She could sometimes have emotion, but then there's this one line where it sounds like she is reading right off of cue cards.
I'm seeing quite the crowd here. I wonder what has them so riled up.
Maybe her performance was good in Welcome to Raccoon City, but it was just not it in this game. But again, I don't blame the voice actor at all because it was clearly Capcom's fault for casting her, and they should have at least given her some voice direction because God, it didn't hurt the game that much, but it was enough for me to notice that okay, something's off about this game. But again, Resident Evil 4 Remake is still my favorite game in the franchise, and I still prefer it more than the original. So, next hot take is that also about a remake, and it's I prefer the remake of Silent Hill 2 more than the original. And it's just overall just because of the gameplay, really. And it just comes down to what I was about to say earlier. People have all these excuses oh, the gameplay is supposed to feel shitty. It's supposed to be bad, It's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to feel like you don't... It's supposed to you feel like you have no control. It's supposed to... The controls are supposed to be bad. But I don't believe that. I just don't believe that at all. Especially since that's not even confirmed by anyone. Hell, the director of the original game went on to compliment Bloober Team and the advancements that they made with the remake of Silent Hill 2. But even after that, you're still telling me that it was that the controls in the first game in the original were purposely bad. No. And this isn't even a thing about the game the game specifically, but I love how people will I love it when fans of the original will say I love how fans of the original will rave about how good, like, you know, the voice acting is, and how it actually sounds like these people are going through, like, you know, mental issues and stuff. But when people in games actually look like they're going through mental issues, they just lose their shit. And I'm specifically talking about how people responded to Angela's face in the remake. People got so mad about how her face looked in the trailer, and I will admit it looked pretty off in the trailer, but that's because the game wasn't really 100% finished. It was still going through, like, you know, fixes and touches and shit. Like, mainly what I didn't like about Angela's face in the trailer was, like, her eyebrows looked like super fake, like her overall hair looked really bad. And I did think her face looked a little unfinished in the trailer, but it was a trailer. Of course it was going to get touched up, and it was. But again, when the game came out, people were like, oh, Angela's so ugly, like, she looks terrible. But it's like these people are forgetting that she's going through one of the worst traumas you can from anything, and it's probably why her face looks like that. So, like, overall, I just like the remake more than the original because of the overall gameplay feel and also the voice acting. And of course, people are gonna have excuses like, oh, but the voice acting is supposed to be bad, it's supposed to be awkward. But really, to me, it just comes down to personal preference. Like, I prefer actual good voice acting. Like, I prefer when characters actually, or actors actually, put emotion into their role. And I just prefer when dialogue doesn't sound so off. But really, it just comes down to, like, you know, personal preference. It's not really a opinion thing, it's just a preference I have. It's like just the same thing I have with Resident Evil 4 Remake. I prefer more modern and, you know, obviously more accessible controls than, you know, tank controls. I still like tank controls, but I just prefer, you know, more modern controls. And that also comes down to, like, voice acting. I prefer, you know, actual good competent voice acting than voice acting that, you know, just doesn't sound good. The voice acting in Silent Hill 2 OG only fits in Silent Hill 2 OG. It doesn't fit in the remake. And, like, I remember this video about the remake. James just sounds like every person now. They were saying it as like a bad thing, and I'm like, isn't that the point of James? Isn't he supposed to be the everyman, the basic dude, but who's also going through some tough shit? Isn't that the point of James, that he's just an average Joe? And of course, people also hate this game because of the dodging. Oh my god, James is now Leon S. Kennedy, super agent flips because he can dodge now. When really the dodging animation, him dodging isn't even that graceful. And plus, you could dodge in the original, like, to an extent. Like, what do you think strafing is? Dodging. It's another word for dodging. But of course, people saw the dodge and were like, oh, they're just ruining this game. The game is going to be horrible. But then it went off to, like, sell, like, millions of copies. And it's one of the most successful Konami games. And Konami is still working with Bloober Team. Like, there was just a post made recently, earlier this day, that Bloober Team will still be working with Konami to make more games, probably even more Silent Hill games. And with that being said, I am really excited for whatever else, you know, Bloober Team has in store with Konami. Maybe even like a Silent Hill 1 remake or Silent Hill 3, or if they're really ballsy, a Silent Hill 4 remake. Okay, so my next hot take is not really it's not a video game. It's not a video game hot take at all. But, you know, I don't think I'm going to make another video, you know, about my hot takes, or, you know, about, like, hot takes about, you know, like, on, like, movies or TV shows. So I just thought I would include it here. And that's in Breaking Bad. I don't hate Skyler or Marie Schrader at all. Like, as characters, I don't hate them. Like, for Marie, she did have, like, you know, that whole, like, shoplifting bullshit and making up dumb excuses about, you know, stealing this tiara for Skyler's daughter. I forgot. I haven't watched Breaking Bad in a long time, so I forget what Walter's daughter's name is. But, like, aside from that, I still, like, you know, at least I still liked her character. Even though she could have her annoying parts, I still, you know, was able to, like, you know, I was still able to, like, you know, handle not being annoyed by her. And for Skyler, people hate Skyler for the dumbest reasons. Like, they make all of these excuses like, oh, she's just getting in the way of Walter making money and protecting the family. when Skylar is literally doing the exact thing Walter says he's doing, which is protecting the family, which he's not. Skylar is actually the one protecting the family. She was actually one keeping Walter in check so the family doesn't get in danger. I know, like, you know, she slept with she cheated on Walter with her boss, which, you know, is a really fucked up thing to do, even if your husband is a, you know, a good how do I mention, you know, the things that Walter cooks without getting demonetized? How do I mention that? Even though he is a good stuff cooker, but people don't even, you know, hate Skylar because of that. They hate her because of all the wrong reasons. Like, it's just so like backward. It's crazy. But yeah, I think that's all I have for today. I probably have more hot takes that I, you know, could have included in this video, but again, at this point, it's like 12:06, so I'm pretty fucking tired, and I probably won't make another, like, you know, hot take video. But if you guys like this video and want to see, you know, more of my hot takes that I probably have, let me know. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my Last of Us video later.